Hey everybody, it's Brett. Just a market recap here. Markets are kind of quiet here today. Wanted to recap some of the news and let's digest some of what's happened in the last few weeks. Definitely a lot going on in the crypto markets. So with that, why don't we unpack some news and then we'll dive into some charts. Fair enough? All right. Investors Business Daily is talking about the crypto outlook picks up amid the banking crisis. Isn't it interesting that as more banks fail, Bitcoin and crypto have been going up? And I think part of that is that they're realizing that the Fed broke the economy, is going to ease up on rates, even though we raised 25 basis points here. Likely they're going to have to slow that down a bit. And also it does make the case for Bitcoin, doesn't it? So I think that's a lot of the reason why the markets are pushing up amidst all the banking crises, because that, again, paints a better case for Bitcoin. And and also easing the markets. The Fed typically will raise rates until they break the market. And clearly with three bank failures, two of the largest U.S. banks failing, which was SVB and Signature Bank, that is a pretty good sign that they've done something wrong. So at any rate, so just to skim through this, I won't go through all of this, cryptocurrency outlook and the banking crisis. Talking about this is old news at this point, but it's still showing up on the news. And interestingly, those of you that are option traders, the BITO is the Bitcoin Trust. You can trade that if you think Bitcoin's going higher, or the BITI, which is the inverse if I think Bitcoin's going to go down. And so it's a bit of an uptrend here on the BITO, the BITO. And so doing option spreads on those, sometimes fun, low liquidity on that. So I would be careful with any of those strategies. But for those of you that didn't know that, that is an option. So just moving right along, because I want to get to the charts. So Binance is in the news recently and is in trouble with the CFTC. And so we'll kind of unpack this a little bit. The CFTC saying that the Binance had violated some exchange rules in the U.S., allowing U.S. customers to trade using derivatives. And so there's more to this, because there's legislation being proposed that would levy heavy fines on any users using VPN. So those of you using a VPN to log into offshore accounts to maybe trade margin, long and short Bitcoin and other cryptos, be very careful. There's some legislation in the House in Congress they're trying to pass that would have heavy, large fines and possibly jail time for doing that. Remains to be seen. And they're doing it under the guise of TikTok, but it's going to easily could flow over. So, the war on crypto is certainly still in play and accelerating. But in terms of Binance here, they are saying the CFTC lawsuit basically saying that the increased federal scrutiny has been following a wave of scandals. So as we know, no shortage of scandals this year, and has really brought everything under the microscope. So, not to go through all of this here, I think it's another article I have. And on the topic here, so Binance sees 2.2 billion of outflows following the CFT lawsuit. Now, is Binance likely to implode? Very unlikely. They at one point had 70 billion in assets, allegedly. And so this is not a lot of money to be leaving Binance, but I think people are trying to move their de-risk the fact that it's a non-zero possibility that they could get shut down, although I don't think that's likely at all. And this is not something to really worry about. 2.2 billion is like 3% of overall funds in the exchange. Still a lot, but good to spread risk around in these kinds of scenarios. And so let's just skim through this. First time I'm seeing this as well. So the markets aren't really reacting that much to it, though, and that's what's interesting about this news, is that the markets were pushing up here in the last few days and digested this news fairly well. So that is a bullish sign. And so, let's keep going, because I think a lot of this, I'm trying to form an overall thesis, but in the end, I have a saying that says, show me the charts and I'll tell you the news, which means how the markets are really reacting to the news. And many times it's already been absorbed by the time the news hits the wires. Let's see. So it looks like, so there's a story by CoinDesk saying it sure looks like the US is trying to kill crypto. Looks can be deceiving, but that's what they want us to think. But certainly I won't call it the war on crypto, but let's just say the pressure on crypto is heating up, although we can pretty well argue there's a silent war, and that makes sense. The big banks and the global economies and the powers that be. You know, it's, internationally, the banks are partially owned by the sovereign states, and you know, they have financial incentives to not let crypto and Bitcoin take over the banking institutions where they earn interest and they make money. So certainly you know, whether it's a war, we call it pressure, same. And so with all of this coming down, with SEC going after Coinbase with a Wells notice, generally that's a precursor to filing an action. And as we know, the SEC has been going after staking and staking related products with Coinbase. Now, Brian Anderson saying he's happy to go to war, or to, let's get away from the war analogy, but happy to sue and battle it out with SEC over that. Interestingly, though, however, we have some software that I've been running that Brian Anderson and the CFO have been dumping millions of shares of Coinbase since December. So did they know about the Wells action? Who knows? But he also has billion shares, 3 billion shares, I think, at one point. So at any rate, let's as far as the ascent to crypto, really, though, it makes the case, if you've read the book, The Bitcoin Standard, excellent book, makes the case of why Bitcoin, and many people read that, thought that could never happen. And these scenarios are unfolding now with the specter of hyperinflation. And if you have been following the bet by Balaji, the former CTO of Coinbase, who is taking a bet, a $1 million bet, that in the next 90 days, Bitcoin will go to $1 million. He's taken that bet with at least one person. He's opened it up to two. Now, I don't know that anyone really believes that it will get to $1 million, but the point is that he's taking the bet that hyperinflation will ensue, and that in and of itself could be a catalyst to drive Bitcoin dramatically higher faster. I'm going to show you guys a chart where I think it's possible based on a chart bars pattern that we could see a $100,000 Bitcoin in by the summer. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's very interesting. So stay tuned. And by the way, if you like the content, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're first time here. So XRP has been sort of in the news, not really so much in the news, but seeing a lot of inflows. The rumors were that XRP was going to announce that they won the SEC lawsuit, or the SEC would announce that. But actually, what they're saying now is not so fast. I have another article that I was reading earlier today saying that even though a lot of the whales are piling in, buying XRP, because they feel that some recent judge commentary on prior cases seemingly in favor of XRP, they're sort of betting on their winning the SEC lawsuit, and it's too early to tell. I'd be very careful with that. And here it says the trading volume surges to billions of dollars on South Korean crypto exchanges. Yeah, so be very careful with this XRP news. This could be a huge fake out and sell the news type of situation. So let's see, Bitcoin volatility worth talking about. The options expiration tomorrow. $4 billion of options expire tomorrow. So, you know, we should expect volatility, although we're not seeing that today. We are seeing markets kind of topping out and rolling over. So we want to get to that here. But in the news, Do Kwon back in the news, finally arrested in Montenegro, and looking as if he's going to face a year in jail at least. And they're saying that it will be harsh. So you can be sure that Sam is, who's miraculously been able to avoid jail due to a $250 million bond, is so far out of jail, but he is in more hot water, much more hot water than Do Kwon, and he must be scared, you know, shaking in his boots, as it were. So he's recently been accused of, we're over to Sam now, of being accused of bribing Chinese officials, paying $40 million to free up some of FTX assets that were previously seized, and to help pay for legal fees, I can only imagine. So, you know, I almost said poor Sam, but you can't be sorry for someone that ran his business the way they did, with so few checks and balances and ways of protecting investors. So you know, and he continues to bend the rules and break the rules to serve his own interests. So no sympathy for Sam. Now let's see, for Do Kwon, you know, probably helpful for Do Kwon. He was not the worst offender. They're going to make somebody a scapegoat in all of this. So at any rate, just moving along here, checking crypto panic. Not a lot happening in the news otherwise here today. And so we'll just skip over that. One other article, though, just suggesting, is it time for altcoins to outperform? I'm not seeing that, but we can certainly take a look. So with that, let's hop over and take a look at the DXY. I had drawn this chart here many weeks ago, back in this range. So this was back February 8th of 2023, suggesting these were some zones where Bitcoin price would go due to the inverse relationship with DXY and the dollar. As the dollar pushed higher here, we had it as crypto retest the lows zone. Interestingly, we did not retest lows. So I may have needed to raise that higher. It did contain the price action though. So we are falling back down in here to crypto rally zone, but seeing a bit of support. Now, the DXY, this is just a very loose interpretation of where things could go. But if the DXY pushes higher, further pullback in crypto, I think I think we will see a short-term pullback on Bitcoin and crypto, followed by a massive rally. So what that would look like in terms of the DXY, maybe DXY pushes up to this resistance level. So support flipped as resistance, and then the DXY drops as the dollar's dropping. There's some speculation that at any point, the BRICS nations, the Kenya prime minister recently let it slip to his media followers to get out of dollars. Something's big's coming. And the rumor is that the BRICS nations are going to suddenly dump the dollar, switch over to the Chinese yuan-based economy. So Russia, China, India, Brazil, and some smaller countries make up half of the world's population. And so if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend watching Ray Dalio's show on Netflix about the rise and fall of the US dollar as the reserve currency. Back when the Dutch guilder was the world's reserve currency, they were the big dogs in the world. They lost it to England. England was sort of the world's superpower when the pound became the reserve currency. And then, of course, the US dollar became the reserve currency. And we've been the world superpower for a long time. However, Ray Dalio argues the dollar is in a deep decline, possibly unrecoverable, and the yuan is on the push higher. Now, the flip-flop on that is, maybe that happens and we see hyperinflation of the dollar and the US adopts the Bitcoin standard. That would be the catalyst to push Bitcoin, skyrocket it into the six figures and higher. So with that, we'll just use this as a general guideline. And if DXY does follow down in this range, I do think this is a crypto super pump rally zone, as I've named it. And I'll show you in the charts here why I think we could, once we break the 32,000 range, whether we pull back first or not, I think it's a fast rise up to 48K to 52K, and I'll show you why. So I'll probably kill the camera here just so you guys can make sure you can see the charts, by the way. So I'll give you a quick little wave and I'll turn off the camera. But in terms of the monthly chart on Bitcoin here, now these were some scenarios. Price on this, our indicators fired on the monthly basis back here. I was not sure that was going to play out. Big bullish engulfing candle, which did push higher. Saw some indecision on this candle, and this candle here though looks very bullish. If I turn off all the indicators, and just on this support line here, right along this 20,000 level, this is one of my favorite candle patterns. I call the rocket, when you see this sort of a long wick and big real body sitting at support. And so in this case, that support would be right here on top of these candles here, resistance, 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 resistance. Then we flipped as this doji here at 23,000, a perfect doji on the monthly chart in February. And then we flipped 23,000 as support. So with this long tail, it looks like a rocket. If we can close here closer to this 29,000 on the monthly in the next 2 days, and the next, actually, by, depending on you're watching this, on the 31st is Friday, of course. So if we see a push into the close Friday afternoon, I think we don't pull back. I think we shoot right up to 4850K, and the reason is, ignoring all the lines here, is that this is a Fibonacci golden pocket retracement. So from the market cycle high back in the last year, November 2021, around 69,000 or so, and then down to the lows of Bitcoin in November of 2022, and to just extend that out, the bounce on that puts us the 618 retracement right at 48,000, and the golden pocket is through the 6.5. So that would be at 50. This would be right here at 50,000, 52,000, give or take. Okay, so watching for that on these lines here, I was anticipating and am anticipating, we push higher to this 32,000 range and some kind of a pullback likely. So at this point, though, on this monthly basis, we could certainly push up here to 32K, see some kind of a pullback here, maybe down to retest 25, and then we shoot up to that 48K. I think that's more than likely than falling down into these lower lows, but maybe there's another shoe to drop. I know some analysts are saying still that we go lower and new lows. I find that hard to believe. I'm not seeing that. Just to be clear, I'm not seeing that, and I'll show you why in a moment. Because here in this chart, also the monthly basis on Bitcoin, and just turn these other indicators back on. Actually, let me turn those off. Our custom trend, our early reversal indicator that proprietary we've developed here, and whenever this fires, and in conjunction with our other one, the trend strength indicator, very, very high probability. So back in 2012, we had this green ERI, and then we had again here at the market lows in 15, right here in 2019, and then we had it fire here in January. So I think the lows are in. Plus, we held strong along, briefly went below it, but on this this line here, which is I believe the 50 100-month moving average, exponential moving average, right? And the green one would be the 50, but we didn't get quite down that far. So this is bullish. And just taking a look here at the MACD on the monthly basis, generally on the longer time frames, really good indicator. And so, as I've stated before, this back in November of 2021, when I was telling traders to get into cash because the MACD was peaking and starting to dip down lower. And then here, when these two crossed, this was January of 2022, I was pounding the table, get out of these markets. And those that listened are very grateful. So because we did continue lower. Now, this is really starting to look a nice inverse bell curve, however, in recovery. So if we were to project this out here, when this might turn back positive, I'd say, to kind of break above one over to the other, we're looking at May, June. I think May, June, typically July has been a great recovery month and reversal. But I think it's going to happen sooner. I think May, June, we're going to see a massive rally, and this thing's going to go off to the races again, and possibly see some nice explosive moves to the upside, as I indicated. So that's all I really wanted to cover there. I'll just jump over to a weekly basis here. What was great to see with this, that the bull market support band, let me see, I can't really turn off these accumulation zones. I've had these on here for a while, but when once Bitcoin broke down but below the bull market support band here, it's like quicksand. It's many weeks. Tried to break back above here in March 2022, failed, and dropped significantly. Tried again to break, it failed. We did come up above the bull market support band here in January and came back and retested, came out of it strongly, and then this big upward weekly candle, very bullish. I think that we probably see some pullback. I still think it's possible and likely we go up to 30,000. But it's good to see that we're back above that 200-week moving average. The death cross, the weekly death cross was a big nothing burger, and generally, it was also simultaneously a daily golden cross, and so these other signals outweigh that. And so what I have here is the pullback zone. If we come back to 25K, would be an excellent point to get back in the markets, buy on the pullback at support, because this resistance level right here at 25K resistance, and then right through here that finally broke, it will now act as strong support. So keep that in mind. And so those of you that were accumulating in these accumulation zones, good for you. I was holding out some dry powder for if we were to come down. There's still that CME gap just below 10,000, way down here in this range. And so at this point, looks unlikely we'll come down to see those lower lows, however. So that's fine. And, again, that's why DCAing, dollar cost averaging, excellent strategy. So you're buying as things go down. You don't know how low it's going to go. Very rare to catch the absolute bottom on these things. So let me just take a look here. I did want to touch on, it's a little bit messy to see, but this here, another reason I think we have some pullback is this stochastic RSI up in these ranges will typically retrace, and especially on a double push higher. We're seeing that here from in the last couple cycles here. We've seen that pulling back. So I have down here super buy zone. If it comes down off of this and bounces higher, okay, great. That shows the markets are strong. If it breaks down and go back into this range, though, based on this trend line here, this would be an excellent super buy zone. This is not financial advice, educational purposes only. Do your own research, et cetera, and always invest responsibly. However, this to me would be an excellent area. So I have an alert set on the weekly RSI, stochastics RSI at 60, at or below 60. So keep an eye on that. We did have, let's see, some bearish divergences in here, which is a different chart, actually, forgive me. So this, nothing to see there. Let's jump over to this other chart, a little cleaner. Now, here's why I think we could see a quick rise up to 100,000, potentially. And so what I have here is a Fibonacci drawn on the, again, that more recent local, or the height of the market, 69,000, similar to what we saw in the other chart on the monthly. So again, here that golden pocket is this little sliver, 48K to 50K right in there. But this bars pattern that I've overlaid here is the overlay from this highlighted region there back in 2019. So if we wanted to just take that, and it's similar, this, I extended it out so you can see, I think it's like that and like that. So that was that pattern. And so, but in terms of the overlay, so far it's following an accelerated push recovery and pump higher. And I had this on there a week ago. Sure enough, we've pushed higher. We're consolidating. I don't know, guys. This is very interesting, and it puts us potentially right at this 100K level by June, which I was saying, June into July. And why is that significant? It's also the 1.618 retracement or extension on the Fibonacci for the market cycle high to the market cycle low. So isn't that interesting? And if things really get crazy, I think if this does play out, likely pull back to support at 69K, the old high, then what could we see? We could see a push higher right up to that next Fibonacci level, the 2.618. And so let's just say if we saw something like this, purely speculating there, but into October, end of the year, 155K Bitcoin. If we see that massive hyperinflation of the dollar, and if we see that, and we see a lot of the people that are holding dollars dumping that for Bitcoin, that could certainly push prices much higher, even as high as this $210,000 or $210,000 range. That is this 3.618. I know it's crazy, but it seems crazy, but anything's possible, as we know, in crypto. And there's a lot of money on the sidelines, especially if you consider all the money that may be pouring out of a hyperinflated dollar. The DXY starts dropping very hard. If that happens, if all of those countries all of a sudden one day say we're no longer supporting the dollar, that could be bad. It could be very bad for Bitcoin. I'm sorry, bad for the dollar, bad for the US economy, great for Bitcoin. So you probably heard it here first, you guys. Drop a like down below if you like this, and we'll see how it plays out. All right, keeping on with this, don't need much to see there. We've already covered the weekly for the most part. This is just a cleaner version of the chart there, and of course, there was some news here, clear directive to crush banking access, blah, blah, Bitcoin bulls. Yeah, so here, the three reasons the Bitcoin bulls are well positioned to profit from this week's 4.2 billion options expiration. Let's not unpack that too much, but the reason that price action is so low and on low volatility right here is because of that options expiration. And what this tells me is this is where the less pain is going to be for the sellers of those options, and the most pain for the option buyers is right here. And so that's probably why they're holding price here. Once those options expire, then the true price will resume. So, this indicates indecision. I do think that we're due for some kind of a pullback here on the daily. So if we jump over to the daily, I'll expand that out a bit, and we can take a look at this. So, this is a topping pattern here, and this indicates weakness, rejecting on these topping tails. Tried to push higher. Probably this was the market makers trying to liquidate shorts who piled on in this area down in here, liquidated a bunch of shorts and pumped it up here. Then when people flipped and started going margin long, they're dropping it down again with this. This is a bearish pattern here, kind of a almost a shooting star, but at any rate, we'll see what happens. Also on our indicators here as well, we have this TSI starting to roll over, and when this breaks this 80 line, generally we see follow through on this. And again, these these are custom designed by our team here. But if once it breaks that 80 line, usually that cycle will follow through. Similarly, on the upside, once it breaks above 20, it'll continue up to the other extreme. So this is the main reason I think we do see some short-term pullback in Bitcoin. How far does it pull in? Probably down in this 25K range, like I was saying before, which is strong support. It's also the 50-day moving average. So, it could bounce and hold around 25.5 or even down to this 25,000 range. Several levels in here. And when in doubt, zoom out. But this was a strong resistance level back in here. And certainly the topping tails on this might provide some support as well. So, we want to keep an eye on these levels too for a potential bounce, as I showed you on the other charts. Okay, on the 1 hour, 4 hour, not a lot here. We have been watching the scene sell off here earlier today. Our early reversal indicator triggered earlier today. And so seeing that follow through, and I think you'll see more downside on Bitcoin on the shorter time frame, because we are seeing that our trend strength indicator breaking down below that 80 line. Usually do see some follow through when we get this ERI and TSI in conjunction. Also, as I mentioned before, if you'd like access to these indicators, you can find them on this site here with special permission from Max, and it's just moonstream.io/success is that link. So again, if you have interest in that, but just simplifies some of the what we do and what we like to follow. But also we also follow this RSI too. There was bearish divergence all through here, which is finally starting to catch up. With some price pushing higher, and all through here, price pushing higher while the RSI was dropping. So some good indications, and that we should pull back that bearish divergence there. So let's see, anything else we want to look at? Why don't we hop over to a chart of Ethereum, and I'll pull up a different, see the end of my master list here. So I want to take a look at total market cap as well. Ethereum looking stronger here. The nice thing about Ethereum is it broke above that 1700 level and has pushed higher. It's kind of come back and retested support. I have a note to myself here is possibly, go in half on ETH on my IRA, but I'm actually going to wait on that, because I think that while we could come back and retest support here, I'm going to set my alert for right back along this opportunity to start dollar cost averaging into ETH. We had the merge coming up, the Shanghai, not the merge, the Shanghai, the development there, and they were testing it on the testnet, which is the Guerlin, I believe, and all these crazy names. But the Shanghai upgrade could have significant upside, and so it could be a sell on the news type of event, but that's coming up here in the near future. This is looking topped out a bit, but starting to push higher. I was expecting to come back down, and it's starting to turn green and head higher again. So ETH one to keep an eye on. My green ultimate buy zone would be down along this trend channel here, though. If you zoom out, strong trend line support right along here. So any touch on this lower trend line, I would suggest would be a great opportunity to dollar cost average into ETH. So moving right along here, we've talked about the DXY. We can look at Bitcoin dominance real quick, pushing higher, nice upward trend channel, and breaking out of this downward trend channel here, but coming up to resistance here. That's why another reason my pullback here on Bitcoin is probable, and so I would look for some kind of retracement here on that. And so similarly, ETH. Now this is okay. So ETH has been trying for a while now. I'll go to a 2-day chart just so we can fit it in this inverse pattern, this chevron sort of pattern. ETH dominance falling all the way up to 2020, then started rising, probably in anticipation of good news, and sort of a lot of money coming into ETH, but it's been flatlining here for some time, and unfortunately it's starting to break out of the upwards trend channel, possibly forming a new downward trend on ETH dominance. So we'll want to keep an eye on that. And in contrast, USDT, now that the stablecoin fears and FUD are mostly behind us, USDT starting to see more money flowing in, probably because of the uncertainty in world markets. So I'm going to redraw that upward trending channel for USDT dominance, that is. All right, total market cap holding well above $1 trillion. That's significant. I'll zoom in on this here so we can see that. Now, I had a buy zone on here just in case. This is a kind of a 3 topping patterns, but it does appear that the overall market is broken out of its downward trending channel since the market high back in 2021. So hopefully that makes sense. Is this now a new upward trend channel? It looks like it could be. So where would we ideally want to be buying? At the lower end of the trend channels. I'm always looking to draw and determine and spot new trend channels reversals, and then drawing them so we know where are our buy zones. So now that we have 2 points of reference here and here, we could draw that channel, and on the top side here, here, and here. So my ideal buy trigger, and I have an alert here set right under $1 trillion. So markets are famous for faking things out. So to come down into dip below $1 trillion and scare people into going short, and then it bounces. So I have a little buy trigger there as a reminder, potentially. And we'll evaluate other things when we get there. Okay, nothing much looking terribly interesting. It's kind of a sea of red. So that article has said that our altcoins going to lead the market there. It's not looking like that to me. I see a lot of bearish looking charts. And one that I might want to look at here. So you've got Polygon, not looking great. Eagled in a new upper trend channel, possibly a decent buy zone in here. My indicators, though, not looking bullish. I don't have what I need. My criteria are the ERI, which is that arrow, TSI, signal, and my bell indicator. Not seeing that. One that I was ADA was looking at yesterday, seeing so interesting uptrend reversal on ADA, possibly breaking out of its downward trending channel, but it's just such a slow moving battleship that I have not been terribly exciting about ADA, but it is back above its 21 and 50-day moving averages. So here's what I would do, and what I'm going to do is drag one of these alerts from way up higher, just drag it into a little bit closer to hand. So I want to know when we get above 45 cents on ADA, because that would be back in this support zone here and well above its 21 and 50 days. So ADA is showing some strength. And let's see the rest of these. I want to look at Phantom Coin. We could look at XRP briefly. XRP targets on this just based on the Fibonacci from this top to this bottom here. Potentially, if it breaks out of this zone, then up into 0.71, that 1.618. But it looks like it's running out of steam at this resistance level. And if there's any bad news on the XRP loss here, it'll come back down. It'll come back down. So I would be careful with that. One I wanted to touch on here is Phantom Coin, and also looking as if it would come back down in. Let's see. And they do have these 3x leverage long and shorts, which can be interesting to trade if you're outside of the US, but not so available to traders in the US here. But let's see. I get the wrong one. That's total market cap. I want FTM USD. That's close enough. So Phantom Coin, it's been let's see. I'd like to go back a little longer. This has been one of our all-time favorites. If we can go back a little bit and get it on a longer exchange where it's been around a while. So Phantom we can use Bittrex. Let's see. Am I on? Oh, I'm still on the 2-day. So that's part of it. Sorry for that. Phantom Coin Tether. Okay, longer history. So this project, we originally were trading this and buying it in January of 2021. So I caught this huge run up here, about 18,525%. Huge drop down here. And the question is, where will the bounce go to? So, we could draw one of these, and this probably was the 386. And let me just see. I'm just eyeballing that, or the 382. Not quite. Okay, so no worries. Those are less significant. So it's got some work to do. It has this deep sort of trough, possibly building a cup and handle pattern. But at any rate, when Phantom Coin runs, it really runs. And so this is one to keep an eye on, and maybe on a breakout here. So I'll just draw that, put an alert on that, and I'll keep an eye out for it. So with that, not a whole lot much else going on in the markets. I think it's going to be really clear, more clear after this big options expiration tomorrow, because as Bitcoin leads, everything follows. And as we've been saying here, these are some likely scenarios here. If I had drawn this, if it doesn't hold up at this higher level, then it would likely pull back, and that's exactly what we've seen happen here. So pushed higher on price there into this zone, resistance zone, because why? Back in here, a lot of liquidity, big liquidity pocket there, now a resistance level. So we're seeing that. I do think we pull back here, back in that $5,000 pocket down in here. That'll be an ideal buy zone. Again, not financial advice, but this zone right here, which I'll make a green because that's, for me, an ideal kind of buy zone for Bitcoin and everything else. Time to refresh. It needs a pullback. It's overbought. As we can see on the oscillators here, signal line red and RSI going down. So anyway, that is my read for this week's markets. Hopefully that was helpful. Keep an eye out for this move higher. And again, if we do close higher toward this 29,000 Friday, let's, depending on when you see this, Friday 8 p.m. Now that we have daylight savings time, and so that would indicate to me a strong support level and what I call the rocket indicator. Why? Because if this is a launch pad and this is rocket fuel and this is the fuse, just imagine you light that fuse and this thing shoots up in the sky. One of my favorite indicators that we discovered. Here's another example of it here. It's got to be sitting on what I call the launch pad. The wick down below has to be a bullish candle and close near the top, in the top 10% of the real body. And what we see with that indicator is that rocket shoots up in the sky until it runs out of rocket fuel, and then it falls back down to earth. So keep that in mind, you guys. Again, if we close closer to that 29,000 to Friday 8 p.m., then I think we push in this next month. I think we push up, maybe even above this 30,000. But then sell off, and then we kind of see this coming back down. And again, there's that ideal buy zone right about the 25,000 range up to about 28,000 on a retest. If it does break down below, some other scenarios here still on the table, guys. 19,500, 16,500, where I predicted we'd go back in May of 2022 last year. And I thought we might still see 14,000, looking less likely now, but anything could happen in the short term. Pushing up higher to that 32K level, I think, is likely. And at some point, with any strength, we can power up to that golden pocket, 48K to 50, call it 52K as on a wick, on a spike. I think that's in the cards at some point here into June, and from there anything could happen. So do we hit 100,000 in that shorter time frame? This will be really interesting to see how that plays out. So anyway, thanks everybody, and hope you enjoyed. Again, if you're enjoying the content there, just give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. I know that Max is planning more interviews and more content in the future, and in the near future as well. So all right, thanks everyone, take care.